this video we're going to be looking at a skeleton that provides a tough challenge for the capture animation utility. So here we can see a skeleton of a character walking along, doing some actions. Now this was a cat rig exported from Max as FBX to Motion Builder, where it was animated and then brought back into Max as an HTR file. So we'll just build a rig and map this character. First of all, we just need to choose a rig off the list, and we're going to use Shrek. So this character, we're going to use this character as our cat rig. Now we'll just simply size the cat rig, and yeah, so the first thing we'll do is start by opening up the capture animation dialog, and here we can see our Shrek rig has been loaded. We need to pick the source objects. So the root node for this hierarchy is actually this helper here. Now we can see our source nodes and our cat rig all loaded. Now if we were to press the auto map button, the auto map system tries to do a auto map from the source rig to the cat rig. But unfortunately this skeleton contains a lot of strange offsets, and we can see the results are very completely unusable. So the auto map system fails because this source hierarchy contains too many offsets in strange directions, and we're going to start by looking at some of these offsets. So I need to close this down and we'll remove this mapping layer. The pelvis bone, if we select the pelvis and go to local, its x-axis is aligned to the side, but all the other bones, the x-axis is aligned down the length of the bone. So this pelvis bone has been rotated over to actually look at the left hip, and this is causing a big offset with the pelvis. The hand bones have strange offsets. Instead of pointing in the direction of the hand, they're pointing off towards where the little finger would have been. Even in the spine there's some strange offsets, just because of the hierarchy and the way Motion Builder has rearranged the hierarchy as it's been imported into Motion Builder and then exported back. So let's start again. Let's go to Capture Animation and load the source objects. And if we look back at our scene, what we'll do is completely map this manually. So let's expand out our view. Let's start by mapping the pelvis. Actually, start by mapping the pelvis to the root. So we grab the root, put it over here, and we can see that the mapping is a lot less than desirable. So what we need to do is rotate the pelvis over and align it so that it's roughly right. So let's just make sure that the pelvis is facing the right direction and that the hips are aligned roughly correctly. So we're just going to do this entire mapping completely manually to show a worst case scenario for working with capture animation. The next bone we need to map is the ribcage, and let's open up our capture animation dialog, and then if we see that we now have the map bone menu option, let's just map the ribcage, map bone, and pick that source bone. And as we can see, this ribcage gets truly messed up because it's inheriting an offset from the pelvis, which actually isn't desirable. So we need to fix this ribcage back up. We need to align it ourselves, make sure it's roughly correct, and then we need to work our way down the hierarchy. So the head is the next bone. Just map it to the bone in the head, and at this point we might pay to start. Oh no, we'll just keep working our way down. So the head is actually backwards right now, so we need to rotate it around forwards. Make sure it's looking roughly relaxed. Straighten it up a little bit. So yeah, we need to work our way through all these bones, and each bone is going to require a manual adjustment. Let's map the forearm, map bone, pick the source, and rotate it. Local. Yes, rotate it right around 180 degrees, and it looks like it's about right. So each bone needs to be manually mapped in this case, and every bone also requires a bit of adjustment to get it aligned the way we'd like it. So, but it's not terribly time consuming. You can see we're working our way through the skeleton fairly quickly, and if we scrub through the animation now, we can see that in fact our upper body is almost complete. So excuse me, to finish off our upper body we need to look at the hands and map them to the correct bone. Map the hand bone to this bone here, which is called right palm, and you can see the offset is all over the place. So rotate it around and correct it, and roughly align the hand. So this is the way we are working with these hands. The hand bone has actually been completely realigned. So the original hand bone would have been straight up the middle, and it's now been rotated off. So let's just check that the mapping worked. So if we wiggle that, okay. Okay. So we have the arms pretty much working now. I think maybe this hand should be turned around a little bit further. Now we need to look at the legs, and the legs are going to provide a slightly more complex challenge. Oh dear, my viewport's disappeared. Something in the scene must be scaled very hugely to make that happen. Views, front, perspective. Okay. So, we need to look at the legs. The legs, if we try to map them in IK, we can see this will be very difficult. So if we map this bone, it's very hard to see what's going on, what the offset is required. So the best thing to do is to put the legs into FK, and then we can manually realign these bones. At this point I might turn on angle snaps to make sure it's roughly 90 degrees on each axis, which is often the case with these mappings. So the thigh bone, although in this case it's not a whole 90 degrees, so the angle snaps really aren't much help. We just have to do it by eye. Now the last bone to map manually will be the foot platform on this leg. So we're going to pick the toe here, and just what we need to do now to validate this is to put the leg into IK, so we can see that the toe is actually rotated around completely wrong. So if we scrub through this animation now, we can see our foot is actually working relatively well with that IK target. It probably needs to be flattened off onto the ground a bit, and probably lowered down. So yes, this animation is almost working with that leg. I think we'll leave that leg for now. We'll map the other leg. Put the leg into FK. It's much easier to see what's working when we're working in FK. Map the bone, and then apply the offset. So yes, now we can put our leg into IK, and we can see, okay, we really haven't gotten it right. We need to make sure. I mean, the fact that these foot platforms are square makes it a little bit harder to see which way is forward. But there we have it. Let's just scrub through the animation and see how it looks. Just looking at the feet's motion. Okay. So at this point in time the character's foot should be flat on the ground, but it's not. So we rotate this foot a bit more. And there seems to be something wrong with the thigh as well. So let's just go back to FK, just look at this animation. Oh, it's not too bad. So we need to, we're in FK, so let's just correct this error. We didn't really spend too much time getting that right. So the more time you spend on the mapping, the better the animation will look. And if we now put our character's leg into IK, we can see it's working fairly well. We need to turn on retargeting just to make sure the character can reach all that distance, since our character's legs are slightly shorter. And we'll turn on retargeting for both legs. So this foot is a little bit lower than the other one, so we should move it up and forward. And there we have it. The animation has been loaded onto this character, and all the mapping has been done completely manually because of the strange nature of this hierarchy. We haven't mapped the fingers or toes or ankles, but we can. That's just more of the same, so I'm just going to skip that step in the process. Yes, at this point in time it would be very wise to save a mapping preset, and I usually use the naming convention of the character's name, check to, we're going to just say motion builder, save. And then in future, whenever we need to load the same motion file from the same source, we can reuse that motion format, capture animation preset. And that's the end of this video.